I knew that I wanted to be a teacher since third grade. We had a project on national parks and we had to make a diorama, in a little shoebox. And I was really excited about it. I did Denali National Park in Alaska, and my teacher looked at it and said that it was really good. And she said, I think that you should be a teacher. And I thought, okay, that's a great idea. I just love to read and write. I was always writing stories and poems and plays and reading books all the time. And I just really was excited by the idea of helping others love similar things. I went to Boston College, and when I got there, they were working with a grant called Teachers for a New Era that was better preparing teachers to work in urban schools. And so from the very beginning of my time of learning to be a teacher, I was doing my field work in local schools, taking college classes in Boston public schools, seeing models of excellent urban educators, and both my professors and the teachers in these high schools were excellent models for what justice and equity could look like in secondary education. So my latest research is about teaching on days after, which is what I call this idea of what do you do in the wake of moments of trauma, tragedy, or injustice. And it started because some colleagues and I talked with teachers about what they did in the days after the 2016 presidential election. It just got me thinking about, well, what about all of the other days after, right? Not just days after elections, but days after moments of racial injustice, of gun violence, of environmental crises, of local events, of tragedy. How do teachers decide what they're going to do in their classes? What do students want to do on those days? And how can those days move us more towards transformative education? Teachers said that it was really difficult to teach on days after because they knew that students would want to talk about it, but they didn't want to cause more trauma, right? Teachers had to already have created a community before they suddenly went in and said, let's talk about this really difficult thing that happened in the news. We talked a lot about how do you curate and how do you nurture that community so that everyone feels like they have a voice in the classroom. I had a lot of interviews done, and then the pandemic happened. And even though I had a book contract and was somehow supposed to be writing the book while at home with my two small children, we were kind of then living through one never-ending day after. And so I paused because I really wanted to be able to talk to teachers about what was happening in the pandemic. I am originally from Waterbury, so I was really excited to come back to Connecticut and to be closer to family. And I also really like the size of the UConn teacher education program. I think that it is big enough to make a difference in a state the size of Connecticut. We know that there are UConn alumni teaching in almost every district in the state and in surrounding states, and yet it's also small enough that you can make changes to, again, move towards equity and justice. So I talked about a little bit earlier the importance to me of justice and equity in teacher preparation. So I think that we need to make sure that our programming, our courses, our fieldwork, our internships, student teaching, all of those really align with our commitment to justice and equity. One thing that's really important to me will be to hear from our pre-service teachers. Being a first-year teacher is really hard, but it's also filled with promise and possibility, right? My best advice is to feel like you don't have to do it alone. There are connections that you can make in your school, in your community, back here at UConn. When it gets difficult, you know that there are communities of support to help guide you through whatever challenges you're having so that you can really focus on the joy that comes with working with children every day.